My name is Tyler Egan. I'm a certified personal trainer, and today I'm going to be going through my current core and mobility routine. The reason I'm making this video is because I'm shortly, and by the time this video comes out, it should be up. I'm going to be releasing a website, and with the release of the website, I wanted to be able to provide some value to people. And core and mobility is something that's so often overlooked when it comes to people's fitness journeys, and it drives me bonkers. So today I'm going to be going over my current mobility and core routine. So with the release of my website, I wanted to give out my core mobility routine with alternatives for people who are doing this at home, for people who may not be able to get into the same positions as I'm in, for people who lack equipment, whatever the case may be, there will be an alternative for you in the program. So make sure, assuming I have it up by now, you go over to the website, you download the free PDF, which has exercise tutorials, which has alternatives, which has some explanations, it has whatever you need. And be on the lookout, because this is just the beginning of a program I'm going to be launching shortly. So without further ado, guys, let's get into it. And I'm choosing to do the deep goblet squat. Now feel free to follow along and substitute what you need to substitute with. We're gonna get into a deep squat position. And this is gonna be working on ankle mobility. You can use a kettlebell or a plate if you have one, or you can use a dumbbell. So when you're in this position, you're going to stack your feet as if you were squatting down, because we're working on mobilizing the ankles and the hips in that deep squat position. This is awesome for a pre-leg day routine. And then you're just gonna work on dorsiflexion, getting that knee over top of the foot. You're gonna make sure you're keeping your knee over top of the outside toes, I would say the outside 3 toes, like your middle toe and over. And really working on the back side of the calves, the ankles, to really work on mobilizing those tissues. So again, you're gonna be doing this for about 2 minutes, 1 minute each side. Better be fucking drinking your water too. Okay, next up we have this hip mobility circle I've been doing. We're gonna go around the hips and work on just about every muscle that connects to the hips. And again, there will be a separate routine to do if you can't get in any of these positions. So you're gonna want to get your knees stacked over top of your ankle. And I always place whatever foot's out in front, but usually place that hand on top of it. And keep my pelvis square. So normally I tend to veer off to the left here. I have to square my hips back up, and then you'll start to feel a really good stretch in the hip flexor here as well. So this is why this is so awesome, because we're mobilizing hip flexors here, getting them used to being in this position. You're gonna get a stretch in the hamstrings, even the glutes a little bit. And then we're also getting a stretch on the hip flexors here, which tend to get super stiff from sitting all day. So when I'm in this position, I usually just try to work around, get my hip used to being in the socket, get it in different angles, because again, our hips can get misplaced up there. So you're just gonna wanna work around this for a minute, and then we'll go on to the next one. Sometimes I'll even kind of come a little bit more forward, get some more ankle mobility, and I'll just kind of work on the internal rotation, work on the external rotation, kind of go back and forth, see what feels stiff, see where I need to pay more attention that day. Okay, so then next up, we're gonna work into the hamstrings. So I'll show this one from the side. So after you're done mobilizing here, you're gonna shift the hips back, and then you're gonna come onto your heel, the same foot. You may have to adjust your back leg. You can come up on your toes to get some activation in this back leg here if you want. If it's uncomfortable, leave your toes down. And then we're going to straighten out the spine, pull the core back. You wanna think about pulling both of your femurs into your hips to kind of square off your hips and stabilize the midsection. And then you're just gonna kind of keep your lower back as straight as possible and just work on those hamstrings a little bit. Really flexing the toes here to protect the knee. Squeeze your front quad to activate that. What that'll do is actually put more of a stretch on your hamstrings, because you're pulling the opposite muscle. You're tightening the opposite muscle, which will lengthen the hamstrings or the back muscle here. You can stand up a little bit if you have to. You can come down a little bit. You can put your hands on something. Sometimes I use my foam roller and put my hands on it. Sometimes I'll kind of come down and kind of come up, and take some deep breaths into it. Relax the muscle. Okay, next up, we're gonna go to a pigeon pose. So for this, you're just going to externally rotate at the hip, You're gonna wanna square your hips off again, so squeeze your core, belly button back. You almost wanna think about engaging your pelvic floor muscles. It may sound weird, but the muscles that you use for sex and to take a dump. So exhale and rotate, flex that front foot. Keep your spine neutral, chest up. And I actually like to come out up onto like spider fingers or on the, what do you call it? My fingertips, that's it. And it feels just amazing. So you'll do that, the hamstring and the hip flexor mobilization for a minute each, and then we'll go to the other side. Okay, so next up we have the world's greatest stretch. Now, whether this is true, I don't know. It is a good stretch. It works on a lot. I didn't come up with the name though. So for this, we're gonna get back into that hip flexor mobilization position. So we're gonna put the front foot up, but in this one, the only difference is we're actually going to dorsiflex at our ankle a bit more. So what that means is we're going to put our knee over top of the foot a bit more. And again, make sure you're keeping it on the outside edge and getting those glutes activated. You can activate the back foot by tucking toes or leaving them flat, whichever one you prefer, which is some ankle mobility here. And then we're gonna plant that back hand. We're gonna make sure our pelvis is neutral, our core is slightly engaged. And then from here, we're gonna work on the thoracic spine. So we're gonna work on the upper back. So what do we have going on here? We have mobilization of the hip flexors with our hip flexed here. We got mobilization of the ankles with this dorsiflexion. I got my back leg, I got my toes tucked, so I got some activation on my back leg here. And I got my hand planted, so I'm working on my shoulder a little bit. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this other hand, we're gonna feed it underneath the planted hand, and then we're gonna rotate up, keeping our hips square and our core engaged, so that all of the mobility, all of the rotation is happening in our thoracic spine, our upper back. And it gets super locked up from sitting all day because we're crouched over like this. So in this position, we're working on ankle mobility, hip mobility, and we're working on thoracic spine mobility all in the same one. I think that's where they came out with the name. So again, dorsiflex the leg, hip flexed, pelvis neutral, core engaged, back foot engaged if you prefer. And then we're just gonna work on this upward rotation. We'll do this for 15 reps. We gotta make sure we're staying hydrated. Okay, but next up we have the Scapula Push Complex. Now this name I did come up with. The idea here is we're going to do the Scapula Push Ups for 30 seconds. Then we're going to do the planks with leg extensions for 30 seconds. And then we're going to do standard planks to failure. So let's get into it. I'm using a band here. If you don't have one or you can't, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. It's just for added resistance for myself. The Scapula push-up is basically just focused on you can do a full push-up if you really want to. I wouldn't. But it's just focusing on the protraction of the shoulder blades and the retraction of the shoulder blades, which will work the serratus anterior, which is a core muscle a lot of people forget about. Very important muscle, so we need to work it. Okay, so if you have a band, you're gonna wrap it around your back. You're gonna get into a push-up position. Make sure your core is engaged, your feet are engaged. Back should be pretty parallel to the ground. Chest up. Make sure you're breathing through all of this. And we're just gonna protract away. And then we're gonna allow our shoulders to retract. Don't let your triceps or your chest take over, and then protract again. Retract and protract. Retract and protract. Keeping your chest up. It's one thing I have to always remind myself. Okay, so from here, you can drop the band or keep it on, whichever you want. We're going to do a plank with leg extensions. Plank position, chest up, core engaged, glutes engaged, and then we're just going to kick the leg back. Make sure you're not rounding your lower back. You want to keep your core engaged, chest up, and we want to use this to activate our glutes to work with our core musculature. And you're going to do this for 30 seconds. And then from here, we're going to hold a plank for as long as we possibly can to failure or form breaks down. Okay, so that's the Scapula Push Complex. We're gonna do that for 2 rounds, and then we're gonna go over to lateral stability. Make sure you're drinking your water. Okay, so next up we have some lateral stability. What do I mean by lateral stability? Well, we want to make sure that we laterally out to the side have stabilization so we're not swaying and shit like that. Our core muscles are so much more than that visible six pack. Our obliques that run up to the sides here, they are very important for lateral stability and rotational power. So we want to train them as such. We're going to do the rotational power next. First, we're going to start with lateral stability. I'm going to be performing suitcase carries. You can just as easily do side planks. Okay, so for this, you're going to grab whatever weight you're using, a dumbbell, kettlebell, a plate, whatever you got, your dog, a child, a sack of rice. You're gonna hold it in your hand, you're gonna really grip it, because the awesome thing about carries is we can work on grip strength as well. And from here, you just wanna make sure you're keeping your core engaged, your chest up, and we're taking nice controlled steps. You don't wanna give in like this and start walking sideways. So that's the idea of doing these. Again, I believe the program has 10 to 20 steps. I usually walk the length of the basement here, make sure I switch arms, and make sure you're keeping that core engaged, your chest is up, and you're not falling one way or the other. This one, I'm going to be performing a Landmine Anti-Rotation, but there will be alternatives in the program if you don't have this. Again, I know not everybody has access to a landmine attachment, but I got mine off Amazon for like 25 bucks. It's worth it. It really, I'll overlay a clip here. It just slides into a couple of plates, and you're good to go. I mean, it really is worth the investment. You can do so much with a landmine, especially if you have a barbell and plates at home. So you're gonna grab the barbell, and you're really gonna squeeze both your arms together to really get like your entire upper body involved. You can get some chest activation in this too. You wanna make sure you have a solid foundation, so soft knees, but core engaged. Really engage your feet into the ground to load the hips. So you're gonna pull your belly button back, chest is gonna be up, core is engaged, you're gonna protract the shoulders out. And then from here, big breath, and you're just gonna go back and forth like a windshield wiper. Keeping your feet firmly planted, making sure your hips aren't moving too much, if at all, because you don't want them to. Henceforth, the anti-rotation. And make sure you're breathing. Just go back and forth to the amount of reps that are given in the program. And that is the lateral stability section of the program. We're going to be doing the two finishers I have for the program. For this one, we're going to be doing weighted wall sits, and then we're going to be doing leg lifts. So you want to make sure you have your feet a little bit, maybe about hip width apart, maybe a little bit wider. You're driving your feet into the ground. You're driving into the big toe, the middle toe, and the base of your heel. You're going to have your legs at about a 90-degree angle, really pushing into the ground. And then if you're going to be using weight, you're going to protract it out in front of you. Chest is up, core is engaged, so belly button's back. We're just going to breathe. We're going to hold this for 1 to 2 minutes. You can throw some shoulder raises in here if you're really feeling ballsy. Some truck drivers is what I'm calling them in this moment, because I didn't actually have a name for it. Or you can just hold it out in front. So 1 to 2 minutes is going to be this one. In this one, I'm going to be lifting my legs up to flex the hips, but I'm also going to be thrusting my pelvis into the air to get more activation of the core, of the transverse abdominis as well, which is the deep muscle that runs underneath this visible six-pack and really is what holds our lower and upper body together and what really stabilizes us. So let's get into it. So again, I'm going to be doing this on a bench. You don't have to use a bench. You can do this on the floor. You also don't have to set it up on a decline like I did. I just prefer it this way. This one we're going to be doing for 30 to 60 seconds. Some gyms have handles, so you can grab that. But in this case, I don't. So I'm going to grab the seated part here, and I rest my man bun right in this little crevice here. It works out perfectly. You're going to straighten your legs out. You're going to want to point your toes to really stabilize your legs so they're not just flailing around. And from here, I think about grabbing the bench and pulling it closer to me to activate my lats. And you're going to pull your belly button towards your spine. You're going to engage your glutes so your ribs are stacked over top of your pelvis. And then we're going to set that in place first. Big breath. You're going to lift your legs up, point your toes, and you're going to thrust your pelvis in the air and then control on the way down. So lift the legs up, thrust the pelvis into the air, controlling the weight down, keeping your core engaged the entire time. All right, guys, that's the video. That is everything that I do in my current core mobility routine. I've done it this way because I was doing a 6-day training split and I wanted to incorporate both into one day. But guys, this is going to be a part of a bigger program where I actually will be releasing everything I've been doing the last 2 months. I've seen a lot of good progress. I've done things a little bit different than most people, and I want to share it with everybody. So this is the beginning. This is the core mobility routine. In the program, you'll find a couple of bonus mobility drills you can throw in there, and you can separate the two. If you have 2 free days a week, you can do 1 day of core work and 1 day of mobility work instead of combining them like I did. And again, in the program, there will be alternatives for every single exercise. There will be alternatives for home workouts, for more beginner level, whatever the case may be, it will all be in there. If you have any questions about it, please let me know. If you guys don't already, please subscribe to the channel because there will be more videos coming shortly. I plan on doing this with, I don't know if it's going to be every single one yet, but I plan on doing this with at least a couple more of the exercise routines that's going to be in the program I'm releasing. So if you guys want to see more of that, leave a comment down below. Let me know what else you may want to see. Share it with a friend, like it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.